your supplements lying to you? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome back to another Dr. Westman Reacts. On my channel, we evaluate and debunk a lot of the misinformation out there on nutrition. I was sent this video from Johnny Harris. Always consider the source. Johnny Harris is an investigative journalist, and because this is talking about nutritional supplements, it seems like a credible source. Be sure to listen to the end where I give you my final comments about the video.
It's easy to look at stuff like this and say it's kind of like medicine, and so it would be kind of regulated like medicine, tracked and vetted by our government's health agency, like medicine is. But medicine goes through a very different process, a super lengthy process with tons of studies and clinical trials, paperwork. It takes years and years, and a lot of drugs aren't ever even approved. They fail this process and never make it onto the shelf. But supplements don't have to do any of that.
That's very true. And I was in the drug development world for 10 years, helping to develop the smoking cessation aids that are now on the market. I actually was involved in one of the first nicotine patch studies and worked with the inventor of the nicotine patch for about 10 years. But you know, the reason that companies go through the FDA process is not because of the kindness of their hearts or wonder how to help humanity better. The reason is the FDA and our federal government requires it if they're going to make claims. So if they're going to claim that your drug reverses type 2 diabetes or manages type 2 diabetes on the airwaves and advertisements on TV and radio and YouTube, then they have to get FDA approval. And this is the loophole that I've wanted more detail on for a long time, is why supplements don't go through this process. Let's keep going.
Any of that.
Companies are responsible for ensuring their products are safe, and in fact can often put new dietary supplements on the market without even telling FDA.
There are rules on what supplement companies are allowed to put in their pills and gummies, but these rules aren't enforced in any real way. It's up to the supplement company to obey them.
With dietary supplements, it's on the honor system that they are following those rules and regulations.
That's Dr. C. Michael White,
a pharmacist, distinguished professor and chair of pharmacy practice at the University of Connecticut School of Pharmacy.
And this is Dr. F. Perry Wilson.
I'm a physician and researcher here at Yale University.
These two doctors helped us a lot in our reporting, helped us navigate this really complex topic, and helped us better understand how this $50 billion a year industry runs wild with all of these products that make health claims that are often not backed up by anything. There's a wild story on how we got here. And to understand it, we have to go back to the 80s and 90s to understand this political commercial featuring Mel Gibson and health supplements.
It's only vitamin.
Nelson Mandela got a rousing welcome from the city of New York today.
The East German authorities have said the Berlin Wall doesn't mean anything anymore.
The 90s was a time of economic prosperity in America, which fueled the rise of a health-conscious middle class that was increasingly attracted to health foods and fitness regimes and alternative medicine.
I avoid sugar. That makes me feel good about me.
To cater to this shift, you have the supplement industry, which was very small and niche at the time, but they met the demand of this new middle class and began diversifying their offerings. They expanded beyond the typical vitamin C tablets and echinacea drops, introducing a variety of new substances, each purporting to enhance one's life in unique ways. One of the supplements that gained popularity was called L-tryptophan. It was this health food supplement made of amino acids that claimed to help people sleep and lose weight. It sounded healthy enough until doctors found that people who took the stuff were developing blood and muscle disorders. Investigations found that it led to the death of 38 people. In response to this incident, Congress began drafting laws that would tighten regulation on health supplements.
I kind of remember that. I have a vague memory. I was in training as an internal medicine doctor, and thinking back, there were not all of these stores with nutritional supplements in such large quantity. There were not vending machines in high schools as there are now. Times have changed a lot. And the idea that you have to have a governmental regulation of something, you have to be reasonable about that. We don't regulate everything. And I do remember, though, that the nutritional supplements are not regulated at the start, and so that you can put a product out there and it's only reactive if a product has caused problems. And we rely on reporting, on doctors sending reports to FDA suspecting that L-tryptophan, for example, caused a problem. And often it's not easy to figure out what's going on. There has to be a strong signal that something is bad. And so that's kind of the situation I recall, and kind of the situation we're in today, where there's no vetting up front of the nutritional supplements, and the idea of regulation only comes after problems have emerged.
So they drafted this bill. The bill would give more power to the FDA to regulate these companies, to tighten the rules on how supplements were able to be labeled, what claims they could make. But as we know, whenever there's a growing industry that's making a lot of money off of selling things and the government comes in and tries to regulate them, they don't just sit back and let it happen. So all the supplement companies got together, they held these emergency meetings, they sent an army of lobbyists to Washington, and they started pouring money on commercials.
Help make sure your child gets a balanced diet with Flintstones.
And this is where Mel Gibson, the 90s movie star, comes into the story.
Freeze! Hey, guys, it's only vitamins.
Vitamin C, like in oranges.
If you don't want to lose your vitamins, make the FDA stop.
Yeah, they weren't messing around here. They published books, they sent flyers to people's mailboxes, they produced more commercials, they created petitions to rally Americans around their supplements. And it worked. More and more Americans were taking supplements. And they responded to this potential tightening of regulation and all of this fear-mongering by the lobbyists by writing to Congress, telling the government not to regulate supplements, to let them keep their vitamins. At the same time, these lobbyists targeted the lawmakers themselves, convincing them to oppose the legislation that was under consideration in Congress and to actually counter it by passing their own law, a law that would be friendly to the industry. And you can actually see this point blank. Sometimes lobbying is like foggy and we don't know what happened, but in this case, the senators who received the most money from the industry were the ones who actually drafted the new bill for this law. And here it is, Public Law 103417 from October 25th, 1994. So what started as an attempt to regulate supplements actually turned into a law that is friendly to the industry, and the reason we have this. I mean, I love when you're like neck deep in one of these laws and you just see a statement that just makes it so clear, like, who was influencing this law. Check this out. This law just straight up says that the federal government should not take any actions to impose unreasonable regulatory barriers towards this industry. And especially, says the law, this industry is really lucrative. It has annual sales of $4 billion. Congress wouldn't want to slow that down. So then the big kicker here, one of the key parts of the law is that they specify that supplements, the thing in this bottle, is not classified as medicine. It's classified as food. That's how the FDA should treat it, as food. But supplements are not food in the same way a bag of Doritos is food. They're much more complicated, but we'll get back to that in a sec.
Yeah, that's pretty chilling, isn't it? That the supplements today that have no regulation before they're made, although there is a little bit of, you can get XX standardization of it, but that there's no requirement for the FDA to put their imprimatur or approval on these things. In fact, it says not approved by the FDA, not evaluated by FDA. Well, at this point, I just have to say that what I teach is don't take supplements, eat great food. The whole idea and concern about supplements, sure, I didn't know the detail, but I don't recommend them. Maybe a multivitamin from a big company that has a reputation and wouldn't want to have any perturbation of their product product would be a good way to go. But I go to the vitamin and supplement stores, and I just kind of look, and they don't tug at me. I don't ever feel like I need a supplement because I'm getting great food and great nutrition from what I eat and drink. And when you think about it, there really hadn't been any supplements until very recently. People were eating great food until very recently. So there may be a role for supplementations and extra vitamins if you're not eating well. But if you're following a keto diet, you're one of my patients, I don't recommend that you add in any of these supplements. For goodness sake, there might be some additive that hasn't been found yet, and you may have a problem. The way some of these illicit products and drugs are being laced with dangerous substances now, I would be very careful to not introduce products like this. The government looks at them as food, not medications, these supplements, and that's a problem.
The point is that this law gave the industry a lot of freedom, including what kind of claims they could make. The law gave them the authority to say a lot of things about what their health supplement does for people, as long as they include this one disclaimer. I'm looking at Genius Mushrooms. The product says that it is healthy immune system support, energy, and clarity. Sounds great. But then here on the back, in very, very, very small, teeny tiny, almost illegible font, zoom in here, you will see a teeny tiny statement that complies with the law. These statements have not been evaluated by the food administrator. This product is not intended to diagnose. It's like right there in the fine print that no one is reading. What people are reading is this: healthy immune system support, energy, and clarity. I mean, the law is so friendly to the industry. It allows these companies to effectively regulate themselves. The law makes it clear that it's the government's job to go prove that something is adulterated or wrong, rather than making the companies prove that their products are safe before they go to market. I mean, it's totally backwards.
We do not approve them for safety and effectiveness before they are sold. Companies are responsible for ensuring their products are safe.
Yes, I was the FDA spokesperson, and I have to also say investigative journalists are sometimes just really helpful. The books that changed my life in terms of nutrition were written by investigative journalists Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz, and this is an investigative journalist just going back and relearning and reteaching, and I've learned so much about the weak science and the use of low-carb, high-fat diets for diabetes from Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz. I'm learning here about the Hatch Act, which I remember hearing about, but it really gave unbridled availability of the marketplace to nutritional supplement manufacturers. And we only know about something being harmful after the fact. And I know that kind of surveillance is very spotty. So I would take care and be careful, cautious about taking nutritional supplements like these. And I don't recommend that, don't think you need them if you're eating great food.
So, thanks to this 1994 law, supplement makers were very happy because now they don't have to tell the FDA anything. They don't have to prove that their claims are effective. They just have to put a little tiny fine print disclaimer. And the FDA has no real enforcement regime. They only really step in a big way after the supplement is proven to be hurting people. Any authority they do have to check on these supplements has to be done with their shoestring budget. This was Congress giving the supplement industry a blank check, telling them they can do what you want, we can't regulate you, it's now the law. And this is why the industry went from a $4 billion industry in the early 90s to a $53 billion industry today. This is why Americans are now inundated with capsules and pills and drops and creams and teas that claim to make your body work better. But this is confusing because supplements actually do have a place in our lives for certain people who need certain things that their body can't make. So one of my questions going into all of this is like, what of this is legit? Is any of it, or is it all just snake oil? What does the science actually say? There's been a lot of good study on this. And luckily, we got one of those amazing things where they do a study of all of the studies and they put it all together and they say, this is what all the studies have concluded over the years. Like a good old meta-analysis. This meta-analysis, which used 84 studies and put it all together to find conclusions, found that vitamins and supplements were generally, quote, associated with little or no benefit in preventing cancer, cardiovascular disease, and death. Had a little bit of a benefit on treating cancer if you already have it. They also found that people with a high risk of lung cancer had a, quote, increased risk of lung cancer and other harmful outcomes by taking one vitamin, beta-carotene. So what this basically is saying is that vitamins don't work for like the big things, preventing the killers like cancer and heart problems, and they maybe even hurt us in some cases, depending on the supplement. But in reading these conclusions, you start to realize just how complex this is. There are like thousands of different supplements, and there are like innumerable numbers of individual bodies that have different chemistry and different experiences. It starts to get confusing to find a satisfying conclusion. So we asked our experts, do supplements actually make us healthier in any way?
Many doctors would suggest that you don't need to take supplements at all unless you have a deficiency.
Deficiency, that's the key word here. So like maybe my body doesn't naturally produce enough vitamin C, or I don't get it in my food, then a supplement would be useful.
If you're a strict vegan, you have, very strong dietary restrictions for whatever reason, those people probably are good candidates for taking a multivitamin.
That's a situation where it makes a lot of sense. But most of us don't need to do that. Whenever there's a situation where all the humans in a society need a certain substance that they're not getting, the government goes wild to make it happen. Like there was a time when we all were deficient in iodine. So to fix this, the government worked with salt makers to just put iodine in salt. So now all of us use it all the time and we just have enough iodine because there's iodine in all of our salts. I guess what I'm saying here is that most of us check off all of our vitamins and mineral needs by living and eating a variety of foods. But of course, within our population, there are people who can't produce enough of a certain vitamin. Or like this YouTuber who just ate chicken tenders every single day. I mean, they should probably take some vitamins. Like you have to eat a variety of foods to get all your vitamins and minerals.
I guess he hasn't watched any of the carnivore videos where people are just eating meat and seem to be getting all the nutrition that they need, but that's okay. That's not his forte.
And luckily, here in the 21st century, we have a test to find out how you're doing on this. It's a blood test. They take your blood, they test it, and they find out how you're doing on vitamins and minerals and what you might be deficient in, and thus what supplements might actually work for you. And yet, 252 million Americans are popping $53 billion worth of supplements every year. And most of them probably don't need to be taking anything. Okay, so if I don't need all this, but I'm taking like a fistful of vitamins every day, where does it all go?
You're just peeing out all of the excess, and it might give you glow-in-the-dark urine, which is pretty cool, but it's a large waste of your dollars.
Here's a full disclosure that may be surprising to you. I take vitamins and supplements sometimes. Like I got sent this green powder from like a sponsor who's like thinking about sponsoring a video on the channel, and I totally drank it like every day. It's like a vitamin supplement, has like 1 billion different vitamins in it, and I was like, maybe I need one of these, even though my blood test doesn't say I do. What if I actually do? What if it's actually going to help? And I tell you that to let you know that like this isn't easy. This is not an easy thing to navigate. We're hit with all of these messages of like improve your mental clarity, like increased energy. And you're just like, is any of this real? What I'm finding is that most of it is not.
Yeah, and to complicate it even more, if you do get one of these blood tests to look at your nutrition and whether you have deficiencies, the blood test often doesn't really reflect what's going on inside your cells. And so there's an art to looking at the blood in terms of nutritional adequacy, and sometimes it doesn't show a deficiency when you have one, and sometimes it gives you a report that you're low on something when it really isn't that important. So I don't really subscribe to checking for vitamin deficiencies if you're eating a great nutritional profile. A well-balanced diet, meaning you're getting all the micronutrients and essential nutrients that you need, will provide it'll provide everything you need.
But what to me is ethically wrong is when people turn to supplements because they've been lied to, or because they don't trust or can't afford other forms of treatment. In other words, when they're desperate.
Surveys of American sentiment show that pharmaceutical companies have lower approval ratings than Congress, which is, that's pretty bad. And again, in many ways, rightly so. The profiteering off medications is, in my opinion, quite unethical.
So we hate pharmaceutical companies, for good reason maybe, but we suddenly trust supplement companies? We trust vitamins and the industry that makes them? Okay, so just quick recap. Supplements are the Wild West in the United States. They've been very poorly regulated. The industry's gone wild. They can make these wild claims. And a lot of us are maybe wasting our money and peeing out supplements that we don't need. Is that the scope of the problem here? It's just that we're wasting our money and we're being falsely advertised to? Doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, I think this is a great expose or history of where the nutritional supplements have gotten around any kind of regulatory guidance or approval. So what you're getting from the store, if it's a supplement, if it says this has not been evaluated by FDA, you really want to be careful. If it's not a well-known brand that's been around a long time, I guess you're going to be taking your chances that there's no benefit from it at all, or maybe even some harm, like the Tryptophan story some years ago. And every few years you'll hear of some new supplement that's found to cause liver damage or something like that. So my take-home point from this video is, be careful about supplements. Even the medications that go through this vetting process and go to FDA approval have only been studied in a limited way. I was in this FDA approval for smoking cessation products for 10 years. And once you go from FDA approval to use in the real world, you go from thousands of people to millions of people. We're in the midst of that right now with the Ozempic and Saxenda and Wegovy and Mounjaro and all these new weight loss agents are now out there with millions of people getting them, and we're learning some of the bad things that can happen with those. Remember, you can change a lot by just changing the food. Food is so important, and the method that we teach is simple, and we'd like to get this information out just as best as we can. If you like, please like and subscribe and ring the notification bell. And I post new videos every Wednesday and Friday for you to see. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.